Objects, just like recipe books, are a really good way to store information and data that you can use to create delicious meals. And I started out writing procedural programming. Then, right after I learned a regular object-oriented programming, I started my first assignment on a DataFlex project. And boy, did that twist my head, because DataFlex is not using objects the same way you are used to if you're a developer from other languages. And this is one of the occasions where DataFlex have a specific strategy that will help them make code easier to maintain and read when you write data entry applications. There is much to be said about the usage of objects and classes, but since DataFlex has such a different experience compared to many other languages in this particular regard, I will focus more on that. I'm sure I revisit objects and classes in more videos in the future, but today we will learn one of the main aspects that sets DataFlex apart from other languages. I'm Johan Broddfelt. I've been a developer for 25 years, and the last 15 I've been developing in the DataFlex community, and I'm here to help you build state-of-the-art applications using DataFlex. Let's begin. A class is a blueprint for an entire concept. It can have properties and methods that enable it to serve your application with a unique set of skills. In most languages, you take one of those classes and you instantiate an object, but DataFlex utilizes something they call a class object. So when you instantiate an object, a private subclass is created for that object, which means that you can put properties and functions and procedures inside your object in the code. And they've used this for all their forms and input parameters, so that makes it a lot clearer to have the events and properties for that item called data entry item in one place. And that makes the code a lot more readable. You can also instantiate objects inside of other objects, making them ideal for representing panels, for elements and other components that you want to add to your applications. If you're, for instance, is a React developer, you are used to building with components that you can include into your project. In DataFlex, those components are basically objects, but they contain all the information. You don't have to call an event handler or something for that object you created, because it's inside the object structure in the same place in the code. That makes it a lot easier to read. In DataFlex, you always inherit a class from another class, and the base class, the fundamental class in DataFlex, is called C object. And all other classes are derived from that class. In this sample, I made a mess of function calls, but I just wanted to show you how these things work. And I hope it will make it easier to understand what is going on inside of DataFlex classes later on when you look and work with the code. We start by creating a class CLS1 based on the CObject base class. Then we create a new class CLS2 based on the CLS1 class. Now we would like to instantiate objects based on these two classes, and just for the fun of it, we instantiate one inside of the other, and in each object we define a new test procedure to overrule the one defined in the classes. But by using forward send, we make sure that the procedure in the classes also gets called. This is one of the important aspects to keep in mind, especially when working with data dictionaries, that we will have a look at in a later video. But that will be an entire series of its own. Now we call the test of object 1. It calls the test of object 2 and return calls to the test in class 2 that eventually calls the code in test that we made in class 1. Unstacking the call structure, the rest of the code in each procedure will be executed, and here is the second aspect to keep in mind. Sometimes you should add a forward send in the beginning of the procedure and sometimes in the end, and it all depends on in which order you want the code to be executed. Good thing to keep in mind. Now you might ask yourself, as I did, is there a way to instantiate a class the usual way? Well, there is, using the createRef class and store the object in a handle variable. But if you use DataFlex in the most productive way, extending on the classes that the framework provides, the ref class is something you rarely will use. Perhaps if you're working with integrations with external libraries or something, but here we create an instance of class 1 and call the test method on it just to show how it works. If you would like to extend a functionality of a group of forms or buttons, you could easily do that this way. That could look like this class, see my limited form. That is extending the see web form class with an onBlur event that reduces or pads the text to 10 characters. If I enter I love DataFlex, exclamation mark, it will keep the DataFlex exclamation marks. And if I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it pads that string with 5 underscores. The object you will work with in DataFlex is a mixed breed of classes and regular objects you are used to from other languages. This gives DataFlex its unique structure that many developers praise for its simplicity. Now, pick up a web form or other component of your choice and make an extended class that manipulates values or change properties in some way based on the input or an event. This was the last episode in this little mini-series about the DataFlex programming language. Unless you have written some really important comments or something that I need to wrap up in the end or get back to. So from now on, I will go back to looking at the DataFlex framework, and especially I will prepare to make videos on the DataFlex core element, which is the data dictionaries. And that is really a heavy topic that I'm going to try to explain in a visual good way. So if you want to see if I succeed with that, then I suggest that you subscribe to the channel and like this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.